include human heritage in climate adaptation conversations. The past writ on the land has a lot to tell us about how to navigate what is to come. Indigenous wisdoms from all over the world remind us here in the West that we need to connect better to the land and to the past writ large on the land. And this, in turn, will help us collectively and personally navigate the climate crises and the connection crisis of our time. I stand here today from an unusual position. I was a field archaeologist for some years, and then in another capacity I went to work in New Zealand, and it was there that I met some Māori elders, and they taught me a little bit more about how to widen my view of my relationship to my land and to my profession. I subsequently came back to the UK, and over time I retrained in sustainability, ecotherapy, and climate psychology. And it's from that place that I'd like to talk to you today. So heritage does have a role to a certain extent in climate psychology networks right now, usually to place us and to give a context about how we've got to where we are right now. That's really important. We do need to know where we've come from. And also it gives us insight into civilizations in the past and how they have navigated their own climate problems, such as hydrology and drought. But I would say that it's our relationship to the land itself that is missing. Climate psychology naturally looks to the future. How are we going to solve the future problems? And you would say that archaeology looks to the past. But I would say that we need to meet them in the middle. And I'd like to share two insights with you right now. First of all, archaeology is ecological. We belong on this planet. And secondly, when we support people to connect to the land wherever they are, that has heritage written on that land from any era, in any location, something meaningful shifts in their sense of connection and belonging to that place. So I'll go back to the first point. Archaeology is ecological. So on one level, this might seem quite obvious. Archaeology is the study of human remains on the land. Humans are biological, our needs are biological, we need to eat, we need to find shelter. And when we die, no matter how we are interred, our remains return back to that cycle of birth, of death, of rebirth and decay. And that's reassuring to see. And even though Western culture right now likes to pretend or tell itself that we're quite disconnected from that natural cycle. And in fact, some people in the West would say humans should really have nothing to do with nature. We are outside of nature. It's something separate to us. But when you're on an archaeological site, really it's quite obvious. That natural process existed before the humans arrived on site. It existed at the time of occupation. And when that occupation site has been left, those natural processes enshroud that site once more, and the site returns to wilderness. So it's reassuring to know that we belong to the wider narrative of birth, death, decay, and rebirth. The systems that Western civilization has created, not so much. Intensive food production, agricultural control, petrochemical means, mineral extraction and processing. These are systems that we heavily depend upon now, but they deny, suppress, or try and control that natural cycle. So humans are ecological. And the second point, when we assist people to go to heritage sites of all kinds, something shifts in their relationship to that place. And this is very important. It helps them to shift from, what can I get out of being here, to, I belong here. Connection is happening. and we widen the human bubble to include the natural world. I'm coming to the end of my PhD, and I'm exploring archaeotherapy, which is essentially looking at heritage sites of all kinds that have been meaningful in some way, even therapeutic in some way to people. I'd like to share 3 cases with you that highlight some of the key insights into my research. The first story is of a second-generation Irish immigrant who is living in the UK. And over her lifetime, she had denied and suppressed her own Irish identity for various reasons. But as an adult, she felt like she needed to connect in some way to that heritage of hers. And she found the new dock in Bristol. It's now derelict, it's not used. It was excavated between 1804 and 1809 by Irish immigrants. And now it's dilapidated, there's ivy, moss, there's kittiwakes, it's no longer used. And spending time in that now forgotten and abandoned place helped her to connect to the story of those immigrants, to the story of the appalling work conditions, the internalized sense of not belonging, the racism that they experienced. And by being there, she integrated, in her own words, the orphaned Irish parts of me. The second story is of a person who went to a battlefield in the USA and deliberately spent time there feeling the violence of that battle, and viscerally, physically felt so overwhelmed by the feelings of that experience that she felt physically sick. And finally, the third story of somebody who actually shared this with me in a climate psychology conversation. And she told me about an ash tree in a beautiful meadow near her home when she was growing up. And she used to play there as a child. And then she said, that ash tree's been cut down, and that meadow is now a supermarket. That story in particular was really resonated with me, and for many reasons, but partly because so many of us here, I think, now in this progress-driven, shifting sands of the climate crisis and also this sense of connection and disconnection to the world, we probably all of us have some stories to share about that loss of place. And what's particularly resonant about what she said was her personal feelings of grief and loss were so disenfranchised from the general, positive feelings in the town about having a supermarket, she'd never told anybody until that day. And again, that reminds me that we're probably sharing quite a lot of personal grief, and it just doesn't have anywhere to go, because on the general consensus is that we're all for progress. And so those small personal griefs, that is the climate crisis personified. Climate is both abstract, but it's deeply personal. To go back to those other 2 points, the first one, it reminds us that the land is speaking to us all the time, even if it has been seemingly forgotten about by progress and the economic powerhouse that was Bristol Docks. It speaks to that person and helps her connect to the ancestors of place. And this is important, not ancestors in an ancestral line, but ancestors of place that have a sense of familiarity. And the second story, I think, speaks so much about bravery. It is not easy to turn towards that which progress is trying to make us turn away from. In fact, it might be physically dangerous, make you feel sick. But this person did this and learned a lot that they felt they needed to know about that land. So there's a lot here about shifting our relationship. When we no longer see the land as separate from us, we begin to see that we can actually listen to the voices that are non-human as well as our human bubble. We listen to the ivy, we listen to the mud, we listen to the kittiwakes, and we know that we belong. I can't, unfortunately, stand here and tell you that, all we need to do is go to heritage sites and our climate and our connection crisis will be fixed. I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. But I would say that it's important to maybe try, go, and listen to other voices. This will help widen and even make wilder your ways of thinking about relationship. I don't think that we're in a disconnection crisis. I think we've always been connected. The crisis is that we've forgotten. And so as I leave you, I want to thank, first of all, the Māori elders of Lower Hutt who taught me, archaeologists, how to have a wider relationship to my own connection to the land. But I would like to leave you with a warning and an invitation. And the warning is this: if we think that the converging crises are going to be solved by everybody staying indoors in boardrooms, in conference halls, then I think we're sorely, sorely mistaken. We need to go and listen to the wider voices of the land. And here's the invitation. Go and listen to those wild voices of the land. Go by yourself, go and take a friend, or go and find, a friendly archaeologist or someone who knows stories of place, and start talking to one another, because I think if there's anything that I have learned, it's that we hold a lot of personal grief, because adaptation for us feels like it's going to be someone else telling us how to adapt. But no, I'm going to reclaim that word and say adaptation for us is within. It's your relationship to your life right now and the land around you, welcoming you, waiting for you to reconnect. Thank you.